Hello everyone. Welcome to the OHR FEVS SharePoint page. The following presentation details the results from the 2022 survey. Last year, the FEVS ran a bit longer than usual and was administered for 7 weeks from June through July, and the onboarding cutoff date was November 19th, 2021. During this time period, there was a lot of surveying going on for the DEIA needs assessment, proof of concept, and several town halls on top of the regular workload, so we thank you for prioritizing the FEVS and submitting your feedback. As a reminder, the 2021 survey results did not report out to the ICs and offices. The 2022 survey was much longer than the 2020 version. 2022 had 99 total questions in comparison to 68 in 2020. A few old questions were deleted, so it all balanced out to be about 31 new questions. As far as categories, my agency changed to my organization, and this category now measures OHR as a whole instead of NIH. Additionally, my work life was removed completely. Of the 31 new questions, my work experience had 5 additional questions, my work unit saw 16 additional questions, my organization had 4 additional questions, my supervisor 3 additional questions, and my leadership 3 additional questions. 2 new indices were also added as well, one to measure DEIA and another called the Performance Confidence Index, which measures if employees feel their team will produce high-quality products and meet the mission of the organization. For response rates and indices, oftentimes OPM or HHS will designate goals for opt-ins to strive for. For 2022, there were no set goals, so internally NIH was striving to stay consistent with 2020, so meeting or exceeding 68%. OHR remained consistent with our 2020 response rate, which is 76%, and exceeded the agency goal by 8%. So as you can see, we still had the highest rate within our organizational hierarchy, and we have maintained this position for several years. The Belief in Action is an index made up of one question that is used to measure if employees believe the results of the survey are going to be used to make the organization a better place. We achieved our highest score to date, 80% positive response. This was a 4% increase since 2020, an 8% increase over the last 5 survey years, and then the last goal given by HHS was in 2019, where they wanted us to achieve a 65% positive response rate. As you can see, OHR has consistently exceeded this score over the last several years. In 2020, our areas for opportunities centered around communication, recognition, and workload balance. These are just a few of the ways your divisions address the FEVS results. As you review the results, keep these in mind as you view the progress our organization has made. Next, I will discuss the performance indices. As I move through the presentation, most of my comparisons are to 2020, but for some of the decreases, I'm going to provide 2019 comparisons as well, since 2020 was such an interesting year for everybody, and some of the results may have been inflated. Overall, OHR's EEI and sub-index scores remained pretty consistent. Our total EEI score was 90% positive with no change from 2020. Leaders Lead came in at 86% positive with a 2% decrease, still up 2% from 2019. Supervisors came in at 93% positive with no change. And then Intrinsic Work Experience, 89% positive with a small 1% decrease, but we're up 2% from 2019. For global satisfaction, we had an overall positive score of 85%. This is a small 3% decrease from 2020, but consistent with our 2019 score. The questions that make up this index are, I recommend my organization is a good place to work, came in at 90% positive, saw a 4% decrease from 2020, but we're only down 1% compared to 2019. How satisfied are you with your job, came in at 86% positive, no change from 2020. How satisfied are you with your pay? Came in at 77% positive. This was a 5% decrease from 2020, but this question, even though it had the largest decrease of all the survey items, this is understandable given the state of the economy and how high inflation is. And then lastly, how satisfied are you with your organization? 87% positive, small 1% decrease, but we're up 3% from 2019. So as mentioned earlier, the Performance Confidence Index measures federal employees' confidence in their team's ability to provide high-quality products and services and achieve the mission of their organization. So as you all can see, our scores were very high, with our overall score coming in at 96% positive, and the questions that make up the index scoring 95% or higher. So employees meet the needs of our customers, 97%. Employees contribute positively to my agency's performance, 97%. And employees produce high quality work and adapt to changing priorities, both came in at 95% positive. The DEIA index is also a new measure and an area of focus for all of the federal government. Our overall score was 86% positive. The DEIA index includes the following sub-indices. So diversity coming in at 87% positive, equity 84%, inclusion 90%, and accessibility 85%. Index average scores were quite high, but the equity and accessibility category saw a few low outliers. Of all the questions across the DEI indices, the lowest positive scores were 82%, which was in equity, and then 84%, which was in accessibility. This is consistent with the OHR DEIA needs assessment results that OCS sent out on February 2nd. Senior leaders are closely examining all of the data to create the best plan on how to address these gaps. Next, let's take a look at our category scores. Before I share the category scores, I want to bring up these two new questions to provide a bit of context. The question on the left is new to my work experience, and the one on the right is new to my work unit. The wording is designed to elicit a negative response when someone agrees with the statement. If you answer the questions as they were asked, then disagree or strongly disagree would be the positive response. As an organization, we would hope that these statements wouldn't be true and therefore displaying large negative percentages. Since the responses did not depict this and they're all across the board, it is hard to interpret, and OPM has suggested that we use caution when analyzing these two questions. Keep these two items in mind because they are impacting the category scores that you'll see in just a moment. For our category scores, work experience came in at 84% positive. It was a 2% decrease. Without that confusing question, it is actually up 2% compared to 2020. Compared to 2019, it's up 2% even with that question included. My work unit came in at 86% positive, up 3%. And without that confusing question, this category would have actually been up 5% compared to 2020. My organization, 87% positive, took a 3% decrease, no change compared to 2019. Leadership, 86% positive, took a 3% decrease, but we're up 1% compared to 2019. Satisfaction came in at 81% positive. This was a 2% decrease, but remember, this is the category that includes the question about pay, and it's up 1% compared to 2019. My supervisor came in at 93% positive, saw no change compared to 2020, and then up 3% compared to 2019. So yes, we had an average of 1% decrease across all the categories in 2022, but compared to 2019, we had an increase of 2% across all of the categories. So next I'll show you our newest strengths and opportunities. For our top strengths, I selected items greater than 95% positive. All of the questions except for my supervisor supports my need to balance work and other life issues are new to the 2022 survey. Of the 7 that you see on the screen, 3 were from my work unit, 2 from my supervisor, 1 from my work experience, and 1 from a new group called employee experience. As you can see, a few of the common themes are high accountability, exceptional customer service, and dedication to the NIH mission. We typically do not have many questions with high negative scores, so items with high neutrals are reviewed as opportunities. Any question with a neutral score of 15% or higher was reviewed and is shown on the screen. All the questions were new to the 2022 survey except for 2, and those were how satisfied are you with your involvement in decisions that affect your work. This has a score of 16% neutral, which was a 2% increase in the neutral score since 2020. And then differences in performance are recognized in a meaningful way. Came in with a 20% neutral score, but saw no change in score since 2020. Since the others are new, I do not have any historical data for them just yet, but hopefully in a few years we'll be able to make some comparisons and see where we have progressed. In 2020, 3 questions were highlighted as areas of opportunity. 1 was deleted from the survey and the other 2 are shown on the screen. My workload is reasonable, had a 71% positive score, 12% neutral, and then 17% negative, but received the largest improvement in positive score out of all of the survey items, with a 5% increase from 2020. This question had the highest negative response in 2022, but its negative score in 2020 was 25%, which is a decrease of 8%. As shown at the beginning of the presentation, many divisions have implemented several efforts to drive change in this area, and hopefully you are feeling less burden. The results show that we are headed in the right direction. And then the second question just mentioned on the high neutral slide is, in my work unit, differences in performance are recognized in a meaningful way. 72% positive, 20% neutral, and then 8% negative. This saw a 1% increase since 2020 in the positive response rate. The third question that was removed was, steps are taken to deal with a poor performer who cannot or will not improve. For our areas of opportunities, items selected scored less than 80% positive. The two questions from the last slide are not included, and there are several duplicates from the high neutral slide. Again, most of the items shown are new to the 2022 survey, so there isn't much historical data yet, but there are two questions seen in previous years. The first one being, how satisfied are you with your involvement in decisions that affect your work? 75% positive, 16% neutral, and 9% negative. This saw a 3% decrease and a positive score from 2020 and 2019. And you may remember, as I mentioned previously, that 2% went to the neutral group. And then secondly, considering everything, how satisfied are you with your pay? Thank you for taking the time to listen to this presentation. And as always, thank you so much for taking the FEVS. Hopefully you have some time to review the full SharePoint page for additional information. Leadership is working hard to address our areas of opportunity, and they look forward to making improvements in the upcoming year. The 2023 survey is expected to be administered starting in mid-May, so please be on the lookout for additional communication starting in the spring.